is to ask, um, if you have a capitalist society, then what is the role of money? But the same question you ask in Islamic society, and it's different. So the question that most people think of is, if you are a Muslim, you are living in a capitalist economy, then what should you do about crypto? So this is not the question of interest. The question is how to create an Islamic society. And if we created an Islamic society, what would the role of money be? And how would crypto work? So there's a very simple answer within an Islamic society. Cryptocurrency has no role. It would not be permissible, it would not be halal, and it would not be of interest. Nobody would want such a thing. This is very different from what is the situation in a capitalist society. The question of how Muslims should deal with cryptocurrency in a capitalist society is not an easy one to answer, but it is not relevant. So we have to get the bigger perspective, what is going on. And so we start from 14 centuries ago, when the message of Allah Ta'ala came to the Bedouin who were ignorant and backwards. And this message was a very powerful message. It transformed these ignorant and backwards people into world leaders. And it created a foundation of basis of knowledge. The nur of this knowledge enlightened the whole world for 1,000 years. And Islamic civilization developed unique forms of politics, economics, and social organizations. Nobody else had such forms. Then, about 7 centuries after the start of Islam, Europeans conquered Al-Andalus. They were very ignorant and backwards in Europe. But when they conquered Al-Andalus, which was decayed and wallowing in luxury, then they acquired millions of books in the libraries of Islamic Spain, Al-Andalus. And they started translating this book, and this is what ended the dark ages of Europe. This new knowledge from the Islamic civilization created the enlightenment of Europe, but it also was a big problem because it was dramatically in conflict with their primitive beliefs. And so this led to the breakup of the church in Catholics and Protestants, and a century of bloody warfare between Christian factions. So, because of this warfare, religious warfare in Europe, they said that we must rebuild knowledge and we must get rid of religion, because religion only leads to bloodshed. So basically, they created a form of knowledge which we can call secular modern knowledge, and this knowledge was supposed to be independent of religion. It was supposed to be independent of any moral basis. So it was supposed to be universal, objective, verifiable by all rational human beings. But this is actually a great fraud and deception, because the knowledge that the Europeans have created is all Eurocentric knowledge. It is based on the conception of Europe as the most advanced civilization on this planet, and the idea that the European society is advanced and developed and civilized, and the rest of the world are barbarians, savages, ignorance, and backwards. And that means us also. And this is what their social science is supposed to do. If you match their templates, if you have democracy, if you have good governance defined by the West, if you have financial systems according to the West, then you are developed and advanced. If you don't have finance, if you don't have money, then you are primitive and backwards. So everything is judged according to European standards. And this is not social science. This is what I call Western social science or Eurocentric social science. And in a couple of papers, I've explained how this is actually the religion of Europe. It is not a science. And so the use of the word science is deceptive. We should call social science to be the religion of Europe. And economics, especially, is the religion of Europe, and finance is also part of the religion of Europe. So in Europe also, basically their society changed dramatically. It was originally a Christian society based on Christian morality and Christian standards of living. But then, when they rejected Christianity, then it became a purely worldly society. And one of the key elements which drives European thinking, which we have all learned through our education, is the Industrial Revolution, which took place in England and more than about 3 centuries ago. And it led to production of massive amounts of surplus. So the question is, in traditional societies, which also Islam endorses, we strive for self-sufficiency. We want to have produce goods not in excess and not in less than what we need. We want to produce the amount of material goods that we need, but we don't want to have high standards of living. We want to live simply and plainly. Now, in the West, they learned how to produce massive amounts of surplus. So the question is what to do with it. If everybody is living with self-sufficiency as an ideal, then all of this extra material will just be thrown away because nobody will want it. So in order to accommodate the excess production, they had to change the ways of thinking of the ordinary people. And so one of the things that was done was creation of consumer society. Everybody wants more and more goods. And in fact, the goal of life was made to acquire money and wealth and pleasure and profits. And see, money is not very important in a traditional society, but in a society with lots of excess products, you sell these products, but you can get nothing for it if money is not important. So it was important to create money and to create a mechanism or social norms which lead to honoring of money as uh, the means of purchase anything. So the creation of money and the significance of money is of extreme importance for a capitalist society. Now, we have to understand what is money. You have to understand that money is a social construct. What is a social construct? It is something which exists because we agree that it exists. So think, for example, of the modern world and its nations. We have Iran, we have Pakistan, we have Afghanistan, we have USA, we have England. So what are these countries? If you look on the map of the planet, you will not find any boundaries for the countries. These are ideas that we human beings have. We have created these countries. If human beings were to disappear from the planet, the countries would also automatically disappear. So it is because you and I and all of us agree that there is a country like England, that the country exists. If today, for example, just a thought experiment, let's imagine a world without countries. Let's suppose we have a big meeting of all human beings and say these countries are harmful. They prevent the human beings, the brotherhood that exists. So from now on, we will not recognize any country. There is no Iran, there is no England, there is no Pakistan. We just are all human beings living on the planet. So if we agree that, okay, there are no countries, then countries will stop existing. Right? So this is what a social construct is. It exists because we agree that these things exist. And if we stop agreeing, then it will cease to exist. So money is a social construct. It is because we agree that if somebody brings me currency, the dollar or the real or the rupee, then and he says, I want to buy something, then I say, okay, you can buy this shoe I have, this furniture I have, and I will take your money because I know that other people also agree to this. So tomorrow when I go into the market and I use this money to buy something else, the other person will also agree. So it's because we all agree to use money to trade that money has power. If we disagree, if we decide that no, I'm not going to use money, then suddenly it will cease to exist. So you have the point of this discussion is to liberate our minds. We think of money as being inherently variable, but it is not inherently valuable. It is valuable only because we agree that it is valuable. And if we change our agreement, then money will become valueless. Suppose that tomorrow everybody says that we are not going to trade in US dollars. We just won't accept this. We don't recognize US dollar. Then US dollar will lose all its value in the international market just because of our agreement to do so. So, money does not have intrinsic value, it has value because we agree that it has value. And that is also what cryptocurrency is. Once we all agree that we are going to use cryptocurrency, it will become valuable. So, if you want to think about Islamic society and how money would function, then we have to think out of the box, because we are living in a box created by the capitalist economy, and we are living in a box which has been shaped by world history. And so, this is a very complicated topic, and so I will not treat it in detail. I will just say that there are many world history events which have shaped our minds and ways of thinking, and we have to liberate ourselves if we want to think Islamically, because the forces of history today are not favorable to Islam. Today, our thinking has been shaped by the West, because the West is dominant, hegemonic. They have their ideas are being implanted in our minds through our educational system, which is all Western education. There are no authentic Islamic traditions of systems of education available today which are capable of dealing with the modern world. Yes, we have madrasas and we have our fiqh and our sunnah and our Quran and hadith studies, but those studies are going for the ancient world. They are not, nobody is teaching us how we can use the Quran and hadith to solve problems of the modern world. So the issue that we face is how to solve our problems today using the Quran and Sunnah of yesterday. And the in the madrasas they teach how the people centuries ago solved their problems in their own times. So this teaching is useful because it teaches us a pattern of how it was done in the past, but it doesn't teach us the solution to the problems of today. Today we have to replicate this process. So, just to get a start on how we can think out of the box, we have to realize that we currently live in a market society. In a market society, money is necessary for survival. If somebody doesn't have money, he will not be able to eat. And the key characteristics of a market society is based on competition. We learn about competition, we have Ministry of Competition, how to do competition. And the market society is based on greed. Everybody wants to maximize their consumption. The firms are maximizing their profits. The laborer is maximizing his wage. And everything is for sale. Today, in the USA, you can buy the womb of a woman to plant your baby in. So everything is for sale. And the goal of life is to make money. So this is very different from an Islamic society where we have one concept is social responsibility. If anybody in my society is hungry, then it is my responsibility to feed him. So in such a society where we take care of each other, money is not necessary for survival, because if you're hungry, your brother will feed you. And the key to an Islamic society is not competition, it is cooperation. And Allah Ta'ala has praised generosity, and He does not like greed, and He does not like stinginess. So the core values of an Islamic society are social responsibility, cooperation, and generosity. And also Allah Ta'ala teaches us that if you save a life, it is as if you have saved the entire humanity, which means that human lives are infinitely precious. This means that there cannot be a labor market, because a labor market means that you are buying and selling lives for money. So in a market society, everything is for sale, but in an Islamic society, the most important things are not for sale. They are not available in the market. You cannot buy them. You cannot buy love. You cannot buy iman. You cannot buy um, cooperation. You cannot buy anything important. Only the unimportant things are for sale. So this is the crucial difference. In an Islamic society, money is useful for secondary things, not for primary things. The primary goods are the ones that honor and love and compassion and social characteristics, and these are not for sale. But yes, you can buy cakes and you can um, buy luxury goods. You can buy crowns and you can buy horses, and many things can be bought. The money is there, but it is not necessary for survival. So what that again determines the value of money in a society. In a market society, money is extremely valuable because you can buy everything. You can buy human beings in the labor market. You can buy and everything is for sale, so you can buy everything. So money is all important. In an Islamic society, money is important, it's useful, but it is not essential. Your basic needs will be fulfilled because of social responsibility, and the goal of life is not to accumulate money, but to achieve success in the akhirah. And to achieve success in the akhirah, you don't need money. You can survive without money. Even today, in remote villages in Pakistan, people don't use money. They eat from their own stocks and animals and crops, and they don't buy things in the market. So life can be conducted without money. And in Islamic society, money would not be of central importance. It would be of peripheral or secondary importance. Whereas in a capitalist society, life is all about earning money. So even today, there are many different types of money. And when you want to analyze money, whether it's crypto or whether it's dollar or whether it's the Iranian tuman or whether it's the Pakistani rupee, you have to ask some questions. Who is the creator of money? Who prints the notes and who is authorized to print notes? And then once the note is printed, what makes this money valuable? Why do people trust? If somebody gives me a Pakistani rupee, why do I accept it? Why do I trust that this money will be able to buy something tomorrow? And then you have to ask, how is the value of this money determined? What anchors the value of the money? What makes its price? Why does the price of rupee fluctuate, or why does it remain stable? These are the central questions to ask about money. So, the capitalist system is run by a very powerful fight for this, because the one in a capitalist system, the one who has the power to create money has the power over everything. And so, there has been a huge battle by different groups to get control of the power of creation of money. And in my paper about this, I have discussed this battle. And primarily in history, there have been two parties. There has been the finance, the high finance, which is a private sector, and there is the government, which is the public sector. This battle has in the West has been won by high finance after Reagan Thatcher revolution of the 1980s. Before, after, between the Great Depression, like 1929 to basically 1980, so we can say 50 years. For this period of 50 years, the power to create money was in the hand of the governments of the West. After 1980, gradually the power shifted to high finance. And today, the power is squarely in the hands of high finance. So the financiers create about 90% of the money in the West. In the East, the finance has not yet taken over. So most of the money, around 70%, is created by governments, and around 30% is being created by private banks. On the average, in some countries, there's more financial penetration. In some countries, it's less. So the cryptocurrency is a phenomena in Western economies because basically private people also want to acquire the power to create money. So in the past, the battle has been between the government and the finance sector, both of which are small, and the public has had no role in creation of money. So the crypto is an effort by the public to break into this game of creation of money. But this doesn't have much relevance to Islamic societies. So if we look at crypto and we ask who can create this money, so we have private sector entrepreneurs, people who are good at computer programming, they have specialized skills, and also crypto takes a lot of energy to create. So you can look at the amount of crypto being created and you can correlate it very well with the amount of energy consumption. So that's one part. Who can create it? Anybody can create it if you have the specialized skill and if you have the energy resources, you have the computers and the power necessary to run them. But what creates value of this currency and how do you create trust? There is no formal mechanism for this. One could create it and people are trying, but because there is no backing for this asset, nothing guaranteed, it is not anchored to anything in real in the economy. So it will, you can, if you look at the value, it fluctuates very wildly, and there have been many frauds and scams with crypto, and so it's not likely to get unless somebody backs it, unless the government starts to back it or some financiers start to back it, it will not get any stability. What about the Islamic world? Should we be investing our time and effort and in creating crypto and in regulating it and stabilizing its value? It can be done, but it is not worthwhile for an Islamic economy. We should not invest time and effort in crypto. It's not worth it for us. So, in order to understand what we need to do, we have to examine the history of the current monetary system. Today, we have a situation which is where the US dollar is the global currency and it's equivalent to gold. Although this scenario is changing with the emergence of China as a big economic power and also the European economic community with euro. The system we have today was created by the Nixon shock in 1971, where Nixon renounced the Bretton Woods system, which was the system from 1944. This system is enormously unjust. In this system, USA gets to print paper and everybody else has to acquire these dollars if they want to do international trade. So what happens is that US prints paper and gives it to the Middle Eastern countries, and in return for this paper, they send it oil. And the US prints paper and buys assets all over the world just for paper. And this is an extremely stupid system. I don't understand why people agree to this system, except for the fact that the US is very powerful and that it has been enforcing this system. But the power of the USA is reducing quite a bit, and that is why other currencies have made their way. But just think about the idea that is very common among economists that we must increase our exports. Why do we need to increase exports? If you think about the global trading system, it is not possible for everybody to increase exports because one party's export are another party's imports. So in a global way, in a just and fair system, we should be trying to balance exports and imports so that they are roughly of equal value. and that should be the common goal. But today, the USA can print dollars, and everybody else needs dollars. So every country wants to increase exports so they can buy dollars, because dollars is needed for trade. So this is a very, very asymmetric and unfair and unjust system. All right, so to understand how money works, we have to have an understanding of money and how it has changed through history. I don't have time for this now, but I have several lectures on this topic which are available from YouTube and from my blog. But basically, before middle of 19th century, trade was within colonial empires, and each country has its own trading region. But when the colonial powers started trading among each other, then the gold standard emerged. So it's late 19th century to World War One. That was a very brief period where there was a gold standard in the world, contrary to what most people believe. Most people think that gold standard is ancient and it has always been in place and it has changed recently. This is not true. After World War One, because the gold existing in the governments was all spent on war, so the gold standard could not be maintained. And between World War One and Two, there was an effort made by European countries to restore the gold standard, but gold standard was not in operation at that time. And so there was a very anarchic and chaotic system, and things were very wild in terms of monetary systems. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement came into place, and that is what created what is called the gold exchange standard, where US dollars were used and dollars were backed by gold. In 1971, the gold standard was dropped by Nixon, and so we entered the era of floating currencies. And in 1990s, we achieved financial deregulation, which created shadow banking and shadow monies, and created the room for the emergence of crypto. And it's backed by a very crooked and very elitist financial system, which gives all the power to the creators of money and none to the people. Now, the only thing I want to say is that if you want to today give fatwa about money, or if you want to understand how money works, or if you want to understand how what our stance should be on money, you have to know this history. Without knowing this history, without knowing that the system of money has changed 5 times in the 20th century, and it is very different today from what it was uh, 50 years ago. You cannot understand the role of money, you cannot give fatwa about money, you cannot do anything. So unfortunately today most people are giving their opinions about money without knowing this history, and this is unfortunate. So one must understand the history of money if you want to talk about it. So
Sorry, Dr. Assad. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
kindly pay attention to managing time because we have limited time, and two speakers remain still. Thank you.
All right, I'm about to finish. I think we are near the last. So what is the way forward for the Islamic world? Well, we should look for economic integration, just like the Europeans, because Allah Ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that if you are united, then nobody can come against you. But if you are divided among yourselves, then your wind will depart and you will not be able to achieve success. So we need to create common currencies. We need to get rid of this nation concept. We need to create a dinar or dirham for use among ourselves. But we should not use gold backed currencies. This is not useful. We should use labor backed currency or petroleum or commodity. And there are many other community based currencies. But the currency is a public resource. It is something which should be used for the benefit of the public. So, who should create money? The capitalist system says that it should be either the government or the financiers. But these are not useful suggestions for us. There is an Islamic solution to this problem, which is for the modern world. It will not be found in the books, because the books deal with problems of the ancient world. So they are community-based currencies, and I have given some details of what an Islamic monetary policy would look like. And basically, we need to use money to create job guarantees, make sure that everybody can participate productively in society, and we need to give money to every child who is born to make sure that they have the full opportunity to participate in the society. So these are two ideas which are different from Western capitalist economies, and they pertain to the role of money. So basically, to conclude, last few slides, the Islamic teachings launched a revolution in world history 14 centuries ago, and today they are just as revolutionary. But we Muslims are not paying attention to the West, to the Quran. Instead, we are looking to the West for guidance. If the West is investing in crypto, we ask, can we use crypto? So this is looking to the West, not to the Quran. Is there any mention of crypto in the Quran? No. Then we can just ignore it. That's because today we are impressed by the West, but not so impressed by the Quran. So I have launched something which is I call the Ghazali project. The ancient Mu'tazila were impressed by Greek philosophy and they wanted to put it on par with the Quran. Today we are living in the world of the modern Mu'tazila, and the modern Mu'tazila are in awe of the West, and they think Western knowledge is on par with the Quran. And the Ghazali project is the solution to this problem of the Mu'tazila. And details of the Ghazali project are provided in this sequence of steps. And this is the last slide. So I think I will end here. I've provided links and references to the papers. I've given a very compressed talk. And many of the topics I've talked about are just, one-sentence summaries of articles and larger messages. And I have provided links for that. So I will end here. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun al mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Asad Zaman. It was really informative presentation that you had. And Dr. Asad Zaman talked about different things. At first, he talked about the difference of role of money in a capitalist society and in Islamic society. And then he defined money, and he said money is valuable because we agreed it is valuable. And imagine, tomorrow people say dollar, we don't agree dollar is valuable, so it would be valueless. And then he talked about the money in capitalism, and said money is necessary for survival, competition in capitalist societies, and it is a goal of life in capitalist society to make money. But in Islamic society, money is for competition, generosity, and money can only buy the secondary goods. And regarding cryptocurrency, he said cryptocurrency is a phenomenon that came into existence in European society, and it is an attempt to break a stranglehold of financial sectors, but does not deliver power to the people. Thank you. And if the attendees have the questions from our speakers, he's ready to answer the questions. Okay, thank you. Apparently, it was really transparent and clear. Thank you, Dr. Asad Zaman. And I don't know if it is possible, our attendees, it is necessary to say to you that our speakers, Dr. Asad Zaman right now is in the United States, in New Jersey. And I think, is it possible for you to follow us until the end, Dr. Asad Zaman?
Yes, I can follow, inshallah.
All right. Okay, thank you. It's a great pleasure. Thank you. And now let's go to the second one. And Dr. Yes. And, yeah. Dr. Adnan, floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Ali Raza. And well, after such a splendid presentation of Professor Asad Zaman, of course, what I can do is I will try and add whatever I can to the discussion. But allow me to begin with, first of all, Professor Asad, thank you very much for enlightening us with very out of the box thoughts, of course. And obviously, this is something we have to understand that in an ideal thought process has to be where we need to understand what the question is really not about crypto, but it is really about the Islamic society and Islamic economic system for that matter. And however, what I would say is that in the context of today's discussion, since audience is also interested in understanding within the framework of a capitalist society where we currently live, they would want to perhaps have a better understanding of what crypto assets are and how does it operate. And I will try and perhaps use this opportunity to expand on some of the concerns you raised in terms of whether cryptocurrency or crypto assets for that matter are of real value in the first place or not. I think in order for the audience to hopefully better understand what essentially you have alluded to, it would be good for me to also talk about what these crypto assets are and how can so the audience is also better able to take a view, possibly in line with what the ideas and thoughts you have shared, and also within the realm of capitalist society in which we operate. So my discussion will not be as thought-provoking in that sense, but you have already set the stage, and I thank you very much for that. So this is, I'll begin with my presentation then. In terms of, as the organizers thought that we should be presenting, as three speakers, we should be presenting various perspective on crypto assets while looking at it through Islamic lens. So I will focus on some of those ideas and some of those details, which perhaps will fill in the gap and have some kind of a continuation to what Professor Asad has already presented. So what I would want here is for us to try and understand. I'm trying to, since the audience is here to understand what crypto assets are, and of course, we can only take an Islamic view on something when we know what is that animal we're talking about. So my initial part of my presentation, or a significant part of my presentation and talk, is actually about trying to understand what crypto assets are. And since we also wanted to talk about crypto funds, which is i.e. the funds which invest in crypto assets, so it is also pertinent for us to have a passing mention of the global crypto fund industry for that matter. And then I will focus on sharing some of the views of contemporary experts, Sharia experts, who have given their thoughts and shared their views on what the crypto assets are. I do not intend to say. I do not intend to give any fatwa. Neither am I qualified for that. My purpose here would be, and focus here would be, to share with the audience here what what other experts have talked about within the context of this being Islamic or not. Now, there are terminologies which are used interchangeably. Cryptocurrencies is more commonly heard term, but many others would call it crypto assets. And in fact, crypto assets is also a terminology which a lot of experts with Islamic lens would also want to refer to these. But I will be using for now these terminologies interchangeably. So, so my focus here is, and again, I would like to remind ourselves that I wish we were in we were able to create, and I hope, inshallah, we will be at one point in time, create an Islamic society where these things will become less relevant. But within the capitalist society in which we operate, this is a factual reflection of what we currently are into, is what I'm trying to relate to you. So it's easier for us to think of crypto if we think of the regular currency which we understand. The regular currency, the USD or any local currency, we talk about dirham or riyal or so on and so forth. Think of that if we visualize that currency. The crypto is no different in that sense. A cryptocurrency is also similar to a regular currency, except that it is entirely digital. Let me try and draw some analogies and give to you some thoughts around where these are similar to regular currencies and where they are not similar to regular currencies. Again, purpose of giving this insight is for us to then be able to take a view whether it is worth spending time in the first place looking into this asset class, or if we think that it is inevitably the future, then we should not be left out for that matter. So if you look at think of the physical currency in the world which we have today, you would see any legal tender, any currency bill, you will see a unique serial number on it. So something in your pocket now, the currency you have in your pocket, if you see, you will be able to see there a unique serial number. This serial number is its identification. This identification is what? Basically where and when this currency was printed, for example. Now, this bill or this regular physical currency is actually this identification number or the serial number on the physical currency. This is controlled, or this has the information hidden behind these numbers is actually accessible by the government, by the central banks or the private banks or the regulated banks. They have access to that information. That is how they are able to trace and figure out, okay, this is the unique identification of the currency. They have that information. You and I, we do not. Similarly, in a regular banking system or regular financial system, we all typically have a bank account. We have bank cards, for example, which we can access using our password and PIN, etc. Now, these the equivalent of that in a crypto world is what we call crypto wallet or cryptocurrency wallet. The cryptocurrency wallets they operate and work like a bank account. The difference being that they are not physical accounts. Now, if you open a crypto wallet, if you open an account, you will see that you do not need to provide any personal information when creating a crypto wallet or creating a crypto wallet account. So our personal information is actually not attached to any crypto wallet, which is unlike of the bank account or the cards. So our bank account is actually also a tracing mechanism which tells this is Mr. ABC, this is the identity of the person to whom this account belongs. But in a crypto wallet case, you don't necessarily have to have your personal information attached. That is also why you, as an individual, you hold the cryptocurrency in that personal wallet directly by yourself. There is no custody by a bank, a middleman like banking sector, the financial sector, the high finance sector referred to professors earlier on, for example. So that means that since you have the control, there is no one who could shut your account down or block your transaction for that matter. But there is a downside to it as well. If you lose access to a wallet account, that means you lose your currency in it as well, which will not be the case when you were holding a bank account, for example. But there are pros and cons. Again, my intention here is to give you as much of an insight in a short period of time as possible into what this animal is all about. Unless we know what it is about, we cannot take a view on it. Now, in a regular system, which we currently we have historically been living in, where when we deposit funds into our bank account, authorities, and I'm referring to authorities like central banks, other banks, and the government, all of them as authorities, they know about our identity because of the details, account details, and they also know the identity of the currency which is used, which is the serial number. But when we do so in case of a wallet, when we deposit a crypto into a wallet, authorities do not know that. That's where the differences lie. So instead of authorities here, what happens is if authorities are not there to control in a crypto world, the wallet balances and the transaction records, these are all stored across so many different computers. Globally, they're connected to the cryptocurrency network. Say it's Bitcoin, then in fact, Bitcoin is the largest computer network blockchain. So it is that network. So the record is there. It's not that we do not have the record, but it is not in the control of authorities. It can still be debated. In fact, as Professor Asad mentioned earlier, uh, uh, those who have access to this system, or what we call blockchain explorer, which is where you have all the record available publicly, that public record is not necessarily, at least for now, not a public information in a sense that an ordinary person would typically not be able to view it because we do not necessarily have that skill set. But it is claimed, and one case for crypto is, or one claim for it is that crypto is trying to break away from that authorities control and trying to so-called give a control into the public. It is yet not the case, but let's see what future holds for that. But this process of of information being recorded and stored across so many different networks, a network of computers, is a decentralization process. That's what we term it as decentralized process, which is, of course, polar opposite of what we have understand of the authorities, where everything is centralized. So, so this is to give you a sense of what the crypto assets are and what crypto wallets are. There are few more things to understand here. That there are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. And in fact, Professor Asad mentioned in passing rather that most of it is scam, and he's absolutely right. There are thousands and thousands of those cryptocurrencies. And in fact, if you compare it to the regular currencies, we also have hundreds of regular currencies. But there is hardly any one of them which is scam. Now, the main type of cryptocurrencies we have are two: coins and tokens. You will only find a handful, a few dozen of coins, similar to what you have as regular currency. Why is it so? Because creation of a coin, a crypto coin, like Bitcoin, is very hard a process. It is hard to make, and it is because the way a coin is created in this game, for, if I can use that term, is basically that computers joining the network of other computers. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, there is a lot of energy being utilized. So computers are interacting with each other, and they process the crypto transactions and keep those records I talked about. So when computers process transaction and keep a record and do that process, complete that in a successful manner, they are able to earn a coin. That is how an addition to the supply of coin happens. And that is why there are only a few dozen out there so far, because the process is very complex for that matter. In a way, some people say that this is like playing the role of an authority in a regular currency system. This can be debated, but that is one argument some would try to give. But then you have tens and thousands of tokens out there. What is a token? Token is not a coin as such. It is not something earned by the system. It is very easy to make and usually can be created in a matter of minutes. And it is basically using that blockchain technology to create something and claim that that something has a value, and that value is typically attached to some kind of a benefit associated with it. The most commonly known types of tokens are NFTs, as you must have heard of, the non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible because these are unique, because these cannot be, these cannot be, created again in the same way. These are unique on their own. If we could, coins on the other hand side are treated as fungible because they're same kind of coins for that matter. There are two well-known examples of NFTs. A USD coin or USDC, which is a digital dollar for internet payment and commerce token. This is fully backed by redeemable real US dollars. Another one is Pax Gold or Pax G. It is, by the way, the one USD coin is fully supported or as I said, it is redeemable in the form of USD. So it is supported from New York, from United States. Pax Gold, on the other hand side, is claimed to be a safe and digital way of owning gold. Again, each Pax G token is backed by 1 troy ounce of gold, which is kept in a vault in London. Again, fully redeemable. Now, these are USDC and Pax G. I picked these two examples to demonstrate that these are two of the few examples we have out there in the market which are fully regulated and audited, and hence why they provide some kind of a secured reliance. Most NFTs, however, are just scams because they're so easy to create. So that should hopefully give more insight into what we wanted to understand of the crypto assets. In terms of the crypto asset types, we can categorize them into 5 or 6 listed here. Cryptocurrency we talked about earlier, which is specifically designed to be used as a medium of exchange. So the currency has historically been used as a medium of exchange. Professor Asad mentioned the ancient days we didn't need necessarily to have any medium of exchange. We could just exchange goods and commodities of our need, more like a barter exchange, for example. The history, which very eloquently was summarized. I wish we had more time to listen to Dr. Asad on that, but very eloquently summarized that the journey and money has gone through. But essentially, money has been created, or currency, as a medium of exchange. Cryptocurrency is also there. So one type of crypto asset, which is cryptocurrency, when we use a crypto asset as a medium of exchange, it is known as cryptocurrency. But when we use a crypto asset as to offer access to benefit to the holder of it, benefits or discounts or services through a blockchain platform, a system, whereby the value is derived from the usefulness or the benefit attached to it, we call it a utility token. It is a token, as I said before, because it doesn't go through that process. It only uses the blockchain technology and enables certain creates certain benefits, and then we call it a token, where the holder of the token would have that benefit available to them. Security token are the tokens, again, an NFT type of an arrangement, whereby the holder will have the entitlement to a particular ownership interest on the underlying business or an asset, which could be of different types. We can divide them into 3. Sometimes the security token would have an underlying asset for any asset which is other than gold, silver, or other fiat currencies. Any other asset of that type, we can classify it as a security token, which is asset-backed. An equity token, on the other hand side, will give ownership in the company, like stocks do that. Investment security token is more like a crypto bond. a bond where we are essentially lending money as if in the name of investment, and these are interest-based loans essentially. The governance tokens are issued by certain platforms where they give the rights to the owner of those tokens to manage and vote on the governance of that platform, the blockchain I'm talking about, or any project for that matter. And non-fungible tokens I talked about earlier, these are unique because they cannot be substituted, we cannot subdivide them, and they cannot be interchanged. Most of the tokens, however, or most of the crypto assets, however, tend to be hybrid in nature, a combination of what I mentioned earlier. Now that we have spent some time trying to understand what crypto assets are, let us take a quick look at investments into the cryptos. But you can invest in crypto as an individual, and many people do, but bear in mind these are very risky assets to invest in. And I'm not giving you a financial advice. I'm just mentioning that this is how you would see from when you observe the market. It's primarily because crypto assets are highly volatile. Now they are volatile just like any other asset as well, because stocks of shares go up and down. They are volatile. And why does that happen? Because we do not really know the real worth of stocks of the company. And we basically take a view on it, and we put a price to it. That is also true for crypto assets for that matter. That mentality remains intact. That financial investment thesis remains intact. Now, but in case of cryptos, the volatility tends to be even more because we do not understand the technologies either. Now, in case of companies, at least we have some sense of what the company is, but we do not understand these blockchains or these technologies as well. Hence why for us to price it is also something which is not very stable. It becomes even more risky when we go into a leverage trade. Obviously, when you borrow money and then trade into it, then you're doubling your risk basically. The risk, the volatility of the crypto asset, as well as you have a borrowed money which you have to return with interest you have to pay back. So which crypto typically one would invest in, or crypto asset, will really depend on the timeline they have, how long they want to invest, and the risk tolerance, which is a typical investment process. In case of crypto, the data suggests that crypto assets follow a 4-year cycle. So you may want to time yourself. If you are an active investor, you may want to time yourself accordingly. But from a risk and reward perspective, usually one would look at the market cap of crypto, which is basically the current value of token and the supply of it. As a rule of thumb, they say that if the smaller the market cap of a crypto, the likelihood of it growing in its dollar value is higher. So you may, rather than going for, so many people go for a smaller market cap, smaller value of crypto to invest in, because they expect that there will be a better capital gain in it. In terms of some other statistics, there are currently about 800 funds globally which are investing in crypto and blockchain technologies. In fact, within the last 12 months, about 200 new funds have been launched. Most of these funds have been structured as venture capital funds, or the second biggest category has been of hedge funds. And only a handful are in the form of private equity. Now, it is understandable when something is in a nascent stage, early stage, typically there is more risk involved, so you would see an investor coming through a fund structure as a venture capitalist. But hedge funds, on the other hand side, as we all understand, they are there to actually manage, hedge the risk, and essentially pass on the risk from one to another. So they are even more risky player in the market. Private equity funds are relatively few in numbers, but they are also investing. When it is private equity, they are actually taking stakes into the crypto asset producers. for that matter. Surprisingly, in a broad category of crypto, the oldest known venture capital fund, which is invested into crypto or started investing in some kind of crypto in today's definition, was in 1977. I was a news to me as well when I was looking at data, for example. In terms of jurisdiction, Gibraltar has emerged as one of the most friendly regulator in the world for crypto funds. In fact, most of the crypto funds are actually, the more recent ones, are coming out of Gibraltar. Now, what has Gibraltar done as a regulator? They have not issued any regulations as such. And it is hard. We all understand. We don't even know, even people, governments and these financial institutions with a lot of depth and knowledge and resources, even for them to understand this word is very difficult. Since they do not understand this word as well enough, they have not issued the regulations. Rather, they have set certain principles that all these funds must follow certain principles, and it is responsibility of the funds or the fund managers for that matter to prove to the regulator that these principles are being adhered to. That's how they are managing. And that has actually resulted into attracting a lot of, this is an unconventional approach compared to many other regulators. And hence, there are many who would actually come to Gibraltar and set up a fund there. I was also asked to give an overview of the crypto asset and funds market in UAE. So that's where I'm based out of. And in the Muslim world, I would say, or Islamic countries, perhaps UAE is a front runner in this space as well. So it made sense for us to look at the landscape here. UAE has actually, by the way, UAE is current chairman or has the chairmanship of the Agile Nations Network. Basically, nations which are more agile to changes and adopting to newness in the world. And so that actually used to reflect on their thought process and mindset as UAE as a country. And they have invested a lot of time, effort, energy, and resources to create some confidence around this asset class and the service providers in this country as well. There are 5 regulators in the country who regulate crypto asset activities. The central bank, of course, it does. But then we have another regulator, which is for non-banking financial institutions, ASCA, Securities and Commodity Authority. There was, and actually earlier this year, a Dubai Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority was created as well for the Emirate of Dubai. Then Abu Dhabi Global Markets Financial Services Regulatory Authority, FSRA, and the Dubai International Financial Center, Dubai Financial Services Authority, DFSA. All of these regulate and provide regulations to regulate crypto assets and activities. In addition to these, ASCA has signed certain MOUs with a number of free zones in the country, such as Dubai Multi-Commodity Center, DMCC, and the DWTC, Dubai World Trade Center. So these regulators in free zones are also permitted to issue licenses under the umbrella of ASCA. So there's a lot of activity, or the landscape is being built for this activity to flourish and thrive. Time will tell where it goes, but this is what it is. You will also note that the one I talked about, Dubai, the regulation of virtual assets, VAL, which established the Dubai Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, VARA. They have created a comprehensive network in their view, and they have put their own definitions of virtual assets and the virtual token as well. This actually was in Feb 28, 2022, when they issued the law, and the authority was created, and it became effective as of March 11th this year. UAE has also launched something they call comprehensive blockchain strategy. This was launched in 2021. whereby government committed that 50% of government transactions will take place through blockchain technology. That's what they have already started working on, and a lot of it is already happening actually. Abu Dhabi's sovereign fund Mubadala, they started investing in crypto ecosystem as of 2021. There are a couple of hedge funds in the country, Alphabet Fund and Pacunio cryptocurrency fund, both from Dubai. They also started investing in crypto as early as 2017. In March of this year, venture capital firm Cypher Capital, they announced the launch of a seed fund, biggest seed fund in the region of $100 million, which will focus on investments in blockchain, crypto assets, and so on. And there was a recent survey done in Q1 of this year by YouGov, whereby it seems that the appetite for this is only increasing. So 2 in 3 UAE residents, they have shown interest in investing in cryptocurrencies within the next 5 years. UAE has also topped the global market in terms of the trust in cryptocurrencies, where about 40% of the consumers have shown their trust in digital asset. The young respondents between 25 and 34 are most likely to invest in cryptocurrencies compared to their older adults. These are some of the findings of the survey. Crypto oasis in Middle East, they have a focus on blockchain ecosystem. This was actually supported by Crypto Valley, Switzerland. It was formed in 2021. Their focus is to identify organizations which are blockchain driven. And they have already identified about 1,000 organizations in UAE alone, which are blockchain driven. In fact, their estimates are by end of this year, there will be 1,500 such organizations identified. Of these, they can be divided into 2 types, native blockchain organizations and non-native blockchain organizations. Natives are the ones which were created to have a primary focus on blockchain technology. And non-native are the ones which provide services or products related to blockchain. So native organizations are about 53% and 47% are non-native. There is an investment arm of Crypto Oasis, Middle East Crypto Oasis in Santio, which was launched earlier this year. They aim to invest $10 million in early stage startups with Middle East region blockchain ecosystem. This is to give you a perspective that there is a lot of focus, emerging focus in this part of the world, and UAE as a country is taking a lead on that. Again, it's a questionable thing whether it is something worth or not, but that's something just for us to take a view on. I also wanted to take this opportunity to present few facts before sharing some views, Islamic views on cryptos. In just a couple of months ago, Faucet, which is a digital asset gateway, again co-founded by a former advisor to the UAE Prime Minister office, they're planning a major expansion into Islamic world. They want to promote adoption of cryptocurrencies in a lot of places. They have closed a $22 million Series A round of funding for themselves. And they plan to launch services in Indonesia and Pakistan. And there are some other serious players. I have recently been into an event where I met quite a few very seriously interested players who are also looking at Sharia space for that matter. Now, whether cryptos are indeed permissible in Sharia, this remains a matter of debate. I have quoted here 2 views, one from Indonesia, other from Malaysia. Indonesian Grand Mufti has categorically mentioned that these are unlawful for trading because they have elements of uncertainty, wagering, and harm. So it is like gambling bet, hence why they wouldn't allow. In case of Malaysia, however, the Securities Commission of Malaysia, their Sharia Advisory Council has advised that it is permissible in principle to invest and trade cryptocurrencies on registered exchanges, including Luno, for example. So there are different views. So there's no settled view on that. But if we go back to certain basics, Sharia principles, for example, in theory, anything could function as currency as long as it is able to serve as a measure of value or and a medium of exchange. So gold, silver, wheat in past have been serving that. In fact, fiat currency or paper currency, we know, has been serving that as well. Now, why did we move from, historically speaking, why did we move from some other traditional mediums to gold and silver? Because it offered more efficiency. It was less, it was not perishable, for example, gold and silver. And it was limited in supply, giving price stability, and so on and so forth. So because it offered more efficiency, it made sense to move to that. Apparently paper currency, and there are, of course, historical facts, the way everything has been hijacked as in terms of Professor Assad's terminology, Eurocentric. Everything has been hijacked, and now we are slaves of dollars for that matter. But that currency was also supposed to be more efficient compared to what gold and silver was. That was the premise on which it was created. This is the same premise which is being taken up for crypto. And the claim is that crypto seems to offer more efficiency. Again, because it is moving to a medium of exchange which is less expensive to store and not perishable. It is moving to a medium of exchange which is limited in supply, the coins I'm talking about in particular, offering price stability, and has a minimum value in use. The value assigned to it is for the purpose for which it is used. Now, as such, Sharia does not tell us what medium of exchange we use. It is left to people's acceptance and trust. And Professor Assad has explained it very eloquently already, that it's all about people's trust on each other. That's what has been driving, and it should be public looking after each other for that matter too. But anyway, since people trust it, and he also mentioned that we take this paper currency because we trust the governments, the issuers for that matter, right or wrong. So really, the relevant Sharia questions here are, can we own and invest in crypto? That's the question. So crypto can serve as a medium of exchange. Okay, let's accept it. But can we own and invest in crypto? From Sharia perspective, anything which can qualify as mal or property, it has a use, and the use is halal, it can be stored and owned, that can be potentially used, could be owned by us and invested in it. So from that perspective, one can say yes. But if that is the case, then we also have to think of fungibility, because crypto assets are fungible, which means they fall into ribawi rules as well. So basically, any rules of riba and interest will apply to those as well, just like any ribawi commodities. So which means basically, if we were to exchange crypto, we must exchange in equal quantity, whether if we do it on a spot or a deferred basis. Otherwise, we will be falling into the haram or impermissible category. Another question is, can we adopt this as a legal tender? Remember, this is decentralized. It's not a centralized arrangement. Can we adopt it as a legal tender? If governments take a view, since today we rely on governments, we have taken a view that it is okay and it is Sharia acceptable as well. So if government accept, perhaps the Islamic view on this would be easy, and that will be of acceptance. But if governments do not, then there is a potential element of excessive speculation which can lead to gambling. And hence, at that point in time, permissibility could be questionable. What happens is that, I think this was a generic guidance which is noted by experts. I wanted to share that. But I think it is fair to say that every crypto project or token needs a separate Sharia analysis. If we were to zoom in and be that micro in our approach, if we are unable to go macro, as Professor Asad said earlier, which ideally we should, if a micro approach is to be taken in the interim until we can have that macro view picture in place, then really we need to take a view on a case-by-case basis. That's because every crypto differs in their objective, their feature, technology, their underlying projects, assets, you name it, basically. And that needs to be, we need to take a micro look at those things then. Sharia also has strict guidance around currency in terms of its issuance and exchange. And if cryptos do not fit the Sharia framework of currency, or they do not follow those properly, then we cannot say that these are compliant. So they have to comply with those Sharia requirements in order for them to be qualified and treated as currencies. So it is safe to say that one should look at each crypto asset on its own to determine its Sharia legitimacy. What does it mean then? I mean, in the details, we don't have time for it, but we will need to then look into the system design, the blockchain itself. The protocols of the blockchain, they could have a number of impermissible elements. For example, there could be elements of excessive uncertainty. There could be some arrangement which gives rise to interest, and so on and so forth. So those fundamental Sharia principles would need to be checked. Similarly, the legal contracts, the main legal contracts, which actually help the transactional framework to be built, they could have some Sharia issues as well, because the contract writing could itself, which is very common in current practice of Islamic banking and finance industry, that contracts are written and drafted in a way that they do not give rise to Sharia impermissible arrangements. Underlines are extremely important because the reference asset, the business, the commodity or the service, whatever we're talking about, that needs to be compliant. If it is something haram, then it is not going to help. And there could be some other issues of concern depending on the type of crypto asset we are dealing with. As to the investment into crypto asset funds, because that was one of the topics, one headline of the topics as well, then not only that crypto assets which funds invest into need to go through Sharia compliance process and make sure that these are compliant, but also the funds need to be structured, the venture capital fund or the hedge fund or the private equity or whatever fund that matter, they will also need to be structured in a Sharia compliant or Islamic manner. I have, as I said before, to begin with, intention was not to give any definitive view. I do not necessarily want to state that there is a definitive position, but there are both positions, Sharia positions on that. I think if we were to continue to look at the bigger picture, then perhaps it is less relevant a question, do we really need crypto in the first place? But if we were to manage in the interim until we have a bigger picture in place and we really have something to rely on in a bigger picture form, then we need to still know how to manage this asset class. We need to have a better understanding of it and understand various views, and then make our own mind as to what is the right approach to follow. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Adnan Aziz. It was really a productive presentation that you had. Dr. Adnan Aziz said cryptocurrencies are like regular currencies, except they are entirely in digital form, and decentralization is the main feature of cryptocurrencies. And about the losing access to wallet accounts of cryptocurrency, he says that it means that we have lost our currency. And based on his presentation, there are two main types of cryptocurrencies. The first one is coins. There are only a few dozens, and the second one is tokens. There are tens of thousands. And regarding investing in cryptocurrencies, he said that it is really risky and volatile job, but there are more than 800 funds around the world that have invested in crypto and blockchains. About the story of the cryptocurrencies in the United Arab Emirates, he said that there are 5 regulatories for crypto assets activities, and such as central bank, securities and commodities authorities, Dubai Virtual Asset Regulatory Authorities, Dubai Financial Services Authorities. And finally, in terms of the Sharia, he said that there are still concerns about if cryptocurrencies are permissible or not. Thank you. And if attendees have the questions, can raise the questions. But I think there is no question. But one question remained, and if Dr. Asad Zaman is with us, please activate your microphone because one of the attendees asked you a question, I say the question, and he said, what's your prediction of the value of cryptocurrencies? It was a question that was asked by one of our attendees. Dr. Asad Zaman, are you still with us?
Yes, you are asking about.
Okay, and Irfan Husseini, one of our attendees, asked you, what is your prediction of the value of cryptocurrencies?
Oh, the value of prediction. This is, I don't have a crystal ball.
I think the question was, where do you see the future of cryptocurrency? I think that's what the question is.
Oh, yeah, this is a power struggle. There's a politics going on. And I think that the crypto will be captured by private groups who will use it to their benefit to defraud the public, just like the stock market and many other instruments are being used for this same purpose today.
All right, good, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Adnan Aziz, for your presentation. Now let's go to the last but not least, Dr. Ziad Muhammad. And over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Ma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Thank you very much. It's a privilege and an honor to address this session, and of course with such erudite scholars like Professor Asad Zaman, Dr. Adnan Aziz as well. Thank you very much. The topic on crypto assets has been already covered in sufficient detail by Prof. Asad and Dr. Adnan. I think a lot has already been said with regards to even the Islamic views of crypto. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to make sure that I stick within the time limit that was provided to me. We will focus on some of the Sharia issues in looking at technology in general, crypto assets in particular, and then jump into the Islamic views on crypto existing today, and then finally talk about the Malaysian practice, what's happening in Malaysia at the moment. The Sharia approach to transactions and technology, of course, technology in itself is agnostic. The method or the manner in which we utilize that technology is what is in question. Ultimately, from a Shari'i perspective, an Islamic law perspective, we look at the objectives, the maqasid of the Islamic law. And Ibn Ashur states quite eloquently, he says, Al-Maqsadul A'zam, the highest of the objectives of the Islamic law is Dar'ul Fasad wa Jalbus Salah, the removal of harm and then the provision of benefit. Now, in order to remove harm, we must identify the harm. We must ensure that first it has been clearly prohibited in the primary and secondary sources. And if it has not been identified as prohibited there, then we may use an analogy to understand whether the new versions, for example, conventional insurance or simple interest or compound interest today, that may be in different forms, they may be identified as prohibited based on their comparative illah, their underlying cause or reasoning. But when we look at an issue like crypto assets, then the overall ruling is based on general permissibility. Okay, al-asl fil ashya al-ibaha. When we're looking at it through a lens of prohibition, then we don't tend to move forward very quickly. From the Shari'i perspective, we look at it through a lens of permissibility. And this means that, especially in social interaction, we move forward dynamically. And therefore, we say that the Sharia itself is a uniquely positioned legal body of knowledge that has its static requirements. They don't change. The prohibitions of alcohol and riba and pork, they don't change. But it also has its dynamic and contemporary application. And then the contemporary application is what we will use to assess whether cryptos or anything else have validity in the Sharia. Now, when we looking at it through the Islamic lens, we must identify whether it creates public benefit, maslaha mursala, public benefit. And that maslaha means that it promotes subsistence of human life, the completion of man's livelihood, and the acquisition of all his physical and intellectual qualities. And this is what's required of him to make decisions, to worship Allah, to complete all his obligations, and to live a happy, content life, to prepare for the akhirah, the hereafter. But when we look at the Sharia, we know that the Sharia, as we said, allows for dynamism. And this dynamism can be seen through its algorithmic process. And what are we talking about here? We go back to the toolbox of the Mufti. The toolbox of the Mufti, the one who provides a verdict, is really made up of tools that can quickly understand the problem, dissect the problem, and provide an opinion based on what will be the maximum impact. That would be positive, that means beneficial. There would be limited harm or no harm as far as possible. And of course, ultimately, everything will be in line with what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, their task is a huge responsibility. It's complicated in many instances. And in order to provide this opinion, they need to understand the underlying issue technically. That means that a doctor, or rather, let's say a mufti providing a fatwa on a medical issue should have a sound understanding of the medical issue. He cannot have a sound understanding of the Sharia alone and say, well, I understand what this medical issue is, and therefore I'm pronouncing based on this. This will be a very risky approach and will cause more harm than good. So understanding the underlying issue, the technicalities of the issue before he provides opinion comes into crypto as well. One has to understand the technology, one has to understand blockchain, one has to understand its functioning, its objectives, and how it can actually be traded. And we'll talk about that shortly. So this algorithmic process means that he has to go through steps, a mathematical process. He has to go through the primary sources, the secondary sources, and he has to have supportive sources, he has to have derivatives, and all of this now will assist him to provide an opinion. And this takes many, many years of learning and understanding. And that's why we say, al-hukmu ala shay, far'un an tasawwurihi. It's something that Prof. Asad mentioned. It's something that Dr. Adnan mentioned as well earlier. If you want to provide a fatwa or a judgment on something, then you must have the proper knowledge and understanding of the concept and of the issues. So how can this be done? Well, first of all, from a technology perspective, you need to know what will cause harm and what will do good. And here, you need to ensure that technology, for example, is not used for nefarious activities and objectives, and there is a limited potential for corruption. You must ensure that funds are disbursed for what they are intended for, and that intention must be legitimate in the Sharia. It must not violate any of the prohibitions of riba and gharar and maisir, or interest and speculation and gambling and unlawful products and services. All of that must not be within the technology transactions. The maslaha here specifically to technology is that blockchain provides advantages. It ensures or enhances transparency. It protects privacy at the same time. It enhances efficiency. It can be used, though, by unscrupulous individuals. It can be used for bad. And we have to understand how and when, and we have to have mechanisms in place to protect the society from these nefarious activities. So what are the Sharia considerations? The technology may be beneficial or destructive, depending on whose hands and what's the intention. But we need to block the means to something that easily can lead to evil. Okay, let's quickly look at crypto assets now, now that we have this foundation. I'm not going to talk about crypto in detail. That's already been covered. I just want to ask, is it an asset? Is it a currency? Is it a scheme or just a scam? Well, let's see. Until June 12th, 2022, you can see this graph indicating the market capitalization of the cryptoverse. Cryptoverse meaning all those tokens and coins and stable coins and utility coins and security coins, all of that make up the cryptoverse. And you can see that volatility is an understatement. Volatility is an understatement, especially today when we experienced another crash, in fact, over the weekend on Bitcoin itself, losing about 20% of its value again. In February 2019, Bitcoin surpassed $1 trillion, but not even a year later, or November 2019, the entire crypto market had already passed $3 trillion US. Bitcoin loses 50% of its value in February, March of this year. And Luna, the very famous token that has been used internationally by many countries that have regulated crypto, they've allowed a handful of cryptos, one of them being Luna. It has lost more than 90% of its value, more than 90% of its value. And bear in mind, if somebody loses, then another has gained in crypto. The classification is based on purpose. That's already covered. I've just detailed it a little bit more. We've got payment coins or tokens. We've got utility tokens, capital market tokens, stable coins, and CBDCs. Now, stable coins and CBDCs are a little bit unique. Stable coins seem to have a backing. They are either pegged to a fiat currency or they are pegged to a commodity. But stable coins are also quite suspicious. USDT, for example, is not very well understood in the actual guarantees that support it. And like this, there are several stable coins that claim that they are backed by fiat, but those guarantees seem to be playing with other coins. So USDT moves in tandem with Bitcoin, and there seems to be an argument, an empirical analysis and quantitative argument that says that USDT is actually feeding Bitcoin's growth, and Bitcoin is then converted back into USDT and using this to create an artificial supply and demand scenario. That's another discussion. CBDCs are central bank digital coins, and this is slightly different to the rest. This is just a digital version of your local currency. So this is from the central bank, and you've heard earlier about the issues of legal tender. Well, here it is the central bank that is issuing these tokens, and these tokens or coins are actually supported by actual fiat. So it's just a digital version of what's happening. Now, I must say that a CBDC doesn't solve the problem. The reason why we have crypto today is because of the lack of trust. People do not trust central banks. People have difficulties trading cross-border when there's sanctions and when there's restrictions. And people want to keep their transactions private because of data security and data being sold willy-nilly today. Now, if crypto was formed as an objective of decentralization, then the question is, does a CBDC actually solve that decentralization? Well, I doubt that actually solves anything for the crypto investor or the crypto holder. So what's the Islamic perspective? And that's the crux of our discussion briefly on the Islamic perspective and then the Malaysian view. The Islamic perspective, Dr. Adnan has covered also in a fair bit of detail. We talk about mal mutaqawwam, valuable wealth. Is crypto representing valuable wealth? Well, does it have a commercial value? These are the questions we need to ask. Is it capable of being owned and possessed? Is ownership transferable? Can it be stored? And does it have a beneficial value in the Sharia? These are the primary concerns in the categorization of mal mutaqawwam. Not legal tender, and let's not get confused. Legal tender is not a requirement of mal mutaqawwam. So it seems to tick all of these boxes. It does have commercial value. You can own it, you can possess it, you can transfer it to someone else, you can store it. It has value in the Sharia based on, as you will see just now, what the scholars talk about as ta'amul or istilah. Now, what are the opinions of the scholars? In summary, and we've created a summary of some of the scholars, not all of the scholars. There are new opinions coming out frequently. You've heard the Indonesian view and the Malaysian view discussed by Dr. Adnan. The earlier views are from the late Sheikh and Mufti, one of the grand muftis, senior muftis of South Africa, Sheikh Taha Karan, and the others. A lot of South African scholars, I'm actually South African as well, a lot of South African scholars have pronounced on the issue of crypto, and many of them have considered it permissible, provided that you recognize it as an asset, not as a currency. That's the first thing. And number two, as long as you understand that you can hold it, meaning you can purchase it, but if you want to trade it, then the trading of it is a different discussion. And that can be a bit complicated, because if you own an asset, you should have the right to trade it. So why is there this restriction of possession, of qabd? However, this is what the preliminary verdicts are right now. Preliminary because we cannot have a final verdict, because crypto is evolving, it's developing every single day, every single hour, there's an evolution, okay? There are other opinions, and the other opinion outside the permissible, meaning mubah, is that it should be abstained from until you have further clarification. So these scholars are saying, well, we're not sure exactly what it is, so it's better to stay away. You exercise caution, and they are applying a specific hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying that what is halal is bayyin, is clear, what is haram is bayyin, it's clear, and what's baynahuma, what's in between that, mushtabihat, it's the doubtful things, and waman waqa'a fi shubuhat waqa'a fil haram, and whoever falls in a doubtful thing, he falls in haram. And there's a beautiful analogy given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about a shepherd, grazing his sheep, and there's a restricted patch, and the sheep begin to eat the grass through the fence, and eventually, they eating, and they crash the fence, and they're just eating the grass anywhere. And this is why we need to protect ourselves from those doubtful things. But other scholars, as the late Sheikh Abdul Sattar Abu Ghudda, he said that abstention should be impermissibility, meaning abstain from it because it's more on the lines of what is impermissible, not clear prohibition, but it's on the lines of what is impermissible. And that's because there's excessive uncertainty around the transactions. There's a security risk, and it's not like currency, it's not regulated, meaning he is arguing the issue of harm. He is arguing the issue of harm. The Diyanat in Turkey, they've also made a pronouncement. They've said it's un-Islamic at this time because of excessive speculation, and it can easily be used for illegal activity. Those that say it's prohibited, they say, well, first of all, it's not a currency, so it's not legal tender. Then they say it's used for illegal activities. It's used for terrorism, it's used for gambling, it may be used for anything impermissible because it has anonymity. People don't know who are transacting, and that's why criminals can utilize these coins and these cryptos for all of these illegal activities. And trading in digital currency is like trading in trades. There's no real value, and therefore it is impermissible. Now, we may want to dissect that a little bit before we get into the Malaysian view very quickly. For those that say it is prohibited because of illegal activity, Well, dollars and other currency are also used for illegal activity and often not traceable. So that makes it quite a difficult argument. The other issue is for those that say that it's speculative. Agreed, it is highly speculative. But if you look at the forex market, you also have a speculative market in the forex market, and there's a lot of trading taking place in the forex market. So, and I'm not arguing in favor of crypto. I'm just making sure that we are very clear on these prohibitions. They also say that there is a lot of fraud and ignorance and cheating that could take place. Well, that can take place in any currency. And they say Bitcoin, and this is from the Mufti of Al-Azhar, he says the Bitcoin is forbidden in the Sharia as it causes harm to individuals, groups, and institutions. Well, that may be a valid argument, but again, does that really differentiate that from other currency? So this is a question that one needs to ask. The biggest contention, however, it's its volatility, and you'll see the Indonesian view also stands along those lines about its volatility. Most crypto trades, this is not holding it or buying it, this is trading in it. Most crypto trades are purely speculative. They create little to no real economic value. In fact, the only impact that they have is utilizing excessive amounts of electricity, which goes against the sustainability practices, the SDGs, and of course, the overall maqasid. But from a pure Shari perspective, the thamaniya, the monetary value, still remains intact, even if the crypto may not create real market value. This is an important discussion, a technical discussion, but it is important nonetheless. Now, there's a lot more discussion that needs to be understood here, particularly around the Indonesian view that says it's not permissible because it's not sil'ah, it's not a tradable commodity. And we've heard the Indonesian view, but for some reason, we tend not to complete the Indonesian fatwa. If you continue to read the Indonesian verdict, it says it allows trading in crypto if they are sil'ah, if they are recognized tradable commodities that have underlying assets and identifiable benefits. It's an important point because, as you will see, there are more than 19,000 cryptos today. 19,000. You've got to understand that figure. And as Dr. Adnan explained, there are only a few coins and the rest of them are tokens because anyone can create a token for anything. It represents anything. It can represent stocks, and we have crypto tokens that represent stocks today, security tokens. But it can also represent good activities like social impact tokens. And I'm going to talk about that perhaps if we do have time. Let's talk about Malaysia and crypto to make sure we cover the important topics for this evening. As you've heard, the Securities Commission of Malaysia has allowed crypto, and they have identified more than 21 billion ringgits, around $5 billion US in digital assets that have traded in Malaysia over 2021. They have said it's not legal tender. They don't expect to make it legal tender because it has high cybersecurity risks and it's highly speculative. It's very volatile. They are working on CBDCs at the moment under Project Dunbar, which is a collaboration with Australia, UK, US, and South Africa and other countries. But this CBDC, as I say, it's just a digital coin representing fiat currency, and it's different to the crypto tokens and coins that you see in the market today. Malaysia ordered the shutting down of the biggest platform, which is Binance, in July 26, 2021, which is last year, and now has an investor alert status in Malaysia for anyone trading on Binance. So as you can see, they've restricted the ability to trade crypto in Malaysia. They do allow a few platforms like Luno, Synergy, and Tokenize, and these platforms allow investors to buy and sell crypto in Malaysia. And it's a huge market, especially with the millennials. You have a large amount of millennials actually trading in crypto today. The Sharia Advisory Council of the Securities Commission approved tokenized technology as Sharia compliant. And obviously you can guess what happened to the activity on tokenize. You had a sudden 30 to 40% increase in the trading on the platform. Datu Daud Bakar, he is the chairman of the SAC of Bank Negara Malaysia, the central bank. He says crypto has great potential and considers it permissible. Now, what are some of the issues in crypto assets? It can be used for both good and bad. It doesn't have any intrinsic value, and this is much debated, but it has social concurrence. So those that are trading it believe in its value. It doesn't really have an underlying asset. If it isn't currency, then it should have some underlying commodity, but it rarely ever does. Stable coins are linked to some commodity or currency, but this is only a single category of coins within the entire cryptoverse. Values are uncertain. Values are so uncertain that when you look at volatilities, and we've done this calculation, the volatility level of Bitcoin on an average 30-day period is about 5.2%. Now, if you compare this to gold, gold is 0.5%. And in its most volatile time, it's 1%. So you've got something that is 500% more volatile than gold. In fact, it can be 1,000% more volatile than gold. And this is before the major crypto crashes of 2022. And there are two, one that took place over the weekend and one that took place in February 2022. In fact, from 1 year ago, you had 30,000 people losing their millionaire status in Bitcoin. So you can understand that this is not a market for the faint-hearted. The impact on the maqasid is a huge discussion. Does it in fact have an impact on the maqasid of Sharia? And we say absolutely it does. Does it really protect wealth? Well, from what you've seen, Luno, the specific token Luna, losing 90% of its value and having a huge following internationally because of regulation, making people poor overnight. People that are looking for a quick buck, people are looking to change their economic status, people that are looking to reduce the inequality gap, now unfortunately are even further away from those that are wealthy. Are there winners and losers like a gambling game? Yes, there are winners and losers. And those losers are the majority of those that couldn't even afford to play the game. Nassim Taleb, the famous author of The Black Swan, he calls it maximal fragility. He says it's a contagious disease. But there's another opinion, Arif Nassim. He says, is it the most useful system of trust ever devised? He thinks so. But what he's referring to here is blockchain. He's not referring to crypto as we see today. And although I'm not fond of quoting Bill Gates said, I like investing in things that have valuable output. And the value of companies is based on how they make great products. And the value of crypto is just what some other person decides someone else will pay for it. So not adding to society like other investments. This is Gates' statement. In fact, Nassim Taleb says there's almost nothing in financial history that's been more fragile than Bitcoin. And I'll end off by saying Bitcoin, and this is in the words of the co-founder of PayPal, okay, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel says, Bitcoin has the potential to do something like change the world. When I say Bitcoin, we are talking about crypto in general. It has the potential to do something like change the world. But we're going to ask, will it change the world for the better? I'll end off there. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, most welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ziad Muhammad. It was really comprehensive presentation that you had, Dr. Ziad Mohammed started his presentation with the Sharia approach to transaction and technology, and which is based on preventing harm and doing good, that is reducing potential for corruption and also general permissibility. That means in transaction everything is permissible unless specifically prohibited, and public benefit, which is also known as masla. And also he talked about the cryptocurrencies, which have been classified based on their purposes, such as payment coins, utility coins, capital market coins, central bank digital coins. In terms of Sharia, he mentioned that there is still this concept whether it is mal wealth or not, and in Indonesia, cryptocurrency has been announced as an unlawful asset by the Ulama Council of the country, and also it is illegal tender in Malaysia due to the high cyber security risks. And thank you. And if the attendees have the questions, our presenter is ready to answer. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Yes, it was really comprehensive and very transparent. And at the end, I want to one more time thank both our attendees and highly respected speakers for being with us, and thank you so much for your time and patience. That was really fascinating webinar, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Bye.